Hey, what's going on guys? How is everybody doing? In today's video, we'll be going over several of my favorite team comps for Yanfei. She's a charge attack based pyro catalyst carry who specializes in single target damage, though her kit does allow her to deal significant AoE base damage if you group enemies up naturally through kiting or through other crowd control means. Because of her combat style, utilizing a lot of charge attacks, managing your stamina is vital to avoid taking unnecessary damage due to the inability to dodge. Additional safety nets can be built into your teams, however, by either utilizing shields to absorb some of that damage and playing a bit more carefree with Yanfei's incredibly small health pool, or adding heroes that can reduce the stamina cost of said charge attacks. If you're new to Yanfei and want specifics about her individual build, you can check out my full guide on her. Link will be in the top right and in the description below. We'll be taking a look at what elemental reactions we'll want to make a priority when choosing teammates, the elemental resonances we can take advantage of, and what heroes can help Yanfei perform to the best of her abilities. We'll be discussing team comps from the best of the best to those easily accessible to free-to-play players. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and hit the notification bell. That way you never miss a video. And don't forget to join our Discord. Link will be down in the description below. Now, with that out of the way, let's jump right into the video. Let's first start with what I consider to be Yanfei's best in slot team. The first hero I want to discuss is Xingqiu. As with most teams you'll see, whether in this video or elsewhere, you'll likely see a lot of him. And that's simply because he is the best pair for Yanfei. Pyro heroes are in a bit of a weird place, especially with heroes with a short interval between attacks. They have access to two of the most powerful damaging reactions in the game, Vaporize and Melt, but they have trouble utilizing it properly because the supporting heroes from both partner elements, Hydro and Cryo, apply the elemental debuff too slowly to be applied before Pyro sparks the reaction, so you end up in this weird scenario where your supporting heroes are actually the ones triggering the reaction and being used to calculate damage and not your main DPS. This is why Xingqiu is so coveted at this point in time, because he's the fastest applicator of both of these elements, and since his burst is timed to your active hero's basic attacks and not set on a timed interval, his rain swords connect before your pyro attacks do, allowing you to consistently proc vaporize triggers, without which Yanfei's damage isn't the best, as her skill multipliers don't actually get all that high compared to other carries. The only time I could see it making sense not to use Xingqiu is if using a mono pyro team, utilizing the Lava Walker set on Yanfei, though her damage will suffer compared to her amplifying teams, with the caveat being that your team will be a bit more stable in the health department, as the partner element that makes the most sense in that department is Geo. And speaking of Geo, our shield hero Zhongli makes an appearance on this team. His shield is not necessary for Yanfei to work, though it's a huge bonus not needing to use stamina to dodge incoming attacks, and instead just stay in one place and let the shield soak up the damage. It's a huge quality of life improvement. But do remember that Zhongli also provides an elemental resistance debuff to all nearby enemies, so you also kinda want to keep your enemies close. Or if you really want to get fancy, just climb one of his pillars and rain fire from above with Yanfei to not get touched. Just don't do this against ranged enemies. It's not exactly the most effective. Lastly, we have Bennett, who is one of the main staples of team building in Genshin Impact. He provides the largest attack bonus in the game with his burst paired with absurdly fast healing. He also rounds out the Pyro Resonance for an additional 25% attack boost, and while not always being relevant, it is relevant right now with the current Abyss floors that we have. He has a cleanse built into his burst. For those unaware of what a cleanse is, you can tell when a skill or burst cleanses you when it has the phrase imbues character with an element, in this case Pyro. What this means is that if you are afflicted by an elemental debuff, slowing waters for an example on floor 11, this imbuing of an element will react with the one you already have and it will cancel it out. So if you're tired of your cooldowns being extended by the floor's constant waves of Hydro, Bennett will help you get out of that. Just make sure to save your skills and bursts for after you cleanse the slowing waters off your team. This next team still features our favorite Hydro support hero, Xingqiu, but we've swapped out the other two staple support heroes for a new pair of Cryo heroes, Rosaria and Diona. Just a couple minutes ago, we talked about how the Cryo heroes we currently have access to apply Cryo too slowly for Yanfei to trigger the Melt reaction, and that's still true of course. So this team does not work like a traditional Melt Vaporize team like you may think. It doesn't work as simply as the Yanfei and Xingqiu pair, where Yanfei is always triggering Vaporize. Instead, it's a bit of a cluster of reactions. Xingqiu's burst is an 18-second duration at max. That's over double Rosaria's burst duration and 50% longer if you have her at C2. So our core pair will have reaction priority. But since Vaporize will remove both Pyro and Hydro elements, it'll allow Cryo to stick, and even though Xingqiu's Rain Swords will hit the enemy before Yanfei's basic attack will, the enemy will only become frozen, which will still allow Yanfei to trigger Melt. Now, if you're in the scenario without really strong energy recharge on Xingqiu, or a sacrificial sword at high refinement to be able to have almost 100% uptime on his burst, now we have two Cryo heroes whose burst applies Cryo over time and can cause Yanfei to trigger Melts or reverse Melts. Though in most cases your support heroes can be underinvested in comparison to your main DPS, I would suggest putting a bit more love into Rosaria, since there will be times, if Xingqiu isn't active, that she'll end up proccing reverse melts since her cryo application is much slower than Yanfei's pyro application. So making sure that her reactions are up to snuff is just as important. But she also works double duty here, helping to increase Yanfei's crit rate. Of course, all of our heroes benefit from having a high crit rate, but Yanfei's Ascension 4 passive will proc a secondary AoE attack off of her charge attack if that initial hit was a critical hit, which is incredibly important for her overall DPS. Lastly, we have our little healer that could, Diona. This is a situation where I absolutely like Diona over Qiqi. Qiqi may be the better pound for pound healer, but Diona offers far more utility. First off, she provides a shield. This is more important with Yanfei than absurdly high healing because of the fact that her health pool is so low, third lowest to be precise. What good are godly heals if your hero dies from only 2 or 3 hits before a heal can even happen? So being able to stop those hits prematurely is more important. Not to mention that Diona's heals from her burst are nothing to sneeze at. She adds further utility though through her first Ascension passive, increasing the movement speed and reducing stamina consumption by 10% by anyone protected by her Icy Paws shield. We have double duty utility here. Not only can the extra movement speed possibly help you evade an enemy to help protect your shield's uptime, it'll also reduce the cost of all of Yanfei's charge attacks to allow her to attack for longer periods of time and create a buffer so that you might actually be able to squeak out that last dodge that you need to survive. On top of all that, reducing enemies' incoming attack damage from her Ascension 4 passive adds to the survivability of Yanfei. Like I said, healing doesn't mean squat if your hero can't survive more than a hit or two. And of course, I can't forget her last constellation providing an extra 200 elemental mastery to Yanfei as long as she's healthy, getting those vapes and melts doing even more explosive damage. Lastly, we have the most glass cannon-y team, that being one that features an Electro Resonance core of Fischl and Beidou. This team does not have a traditional healer, which makes it dicey to run as one of your teams in the Abyss, but it does have defensive capabilities between Xingqiu reducing incoming damage and providing a minimal amount of healing, and Beidou providing a shield after unlocking her first constellation, which you should have up pretty often given that the Electro Resonance will provide copious amounts of electro energy to fuel both her and Fischl's burst. And of course, Fischl can heal herself a little bit as well. This team will excel at dispatching large group of enemies as Beidou's counterattacks hit lots of enemies within a large radius, electro charge reactions will spread electro damage, and both Beidou's burst and Fischl's Oz will spread electro around without you needing to do anything, providing you with insanely easy overloaded procs and Vaporize procs, as enemies who are electrocharged will have both electro and hydro applied and can coexist. The most notable change I would offer to make to this team is to add a dedicated healer. While it probably makes sense to swap out one of your electro heroes, that's just not what we're about on this team, since we want to keep that intact basically to fuel Beidou's burst, since it's far more powerful than Oz in my opinion. Instead, I would switch Xingqiu with Barbara, who can actually provide more utility than just her healing. She can actually reduce the stamina cost of Yanfei's charge attacks, which will help her deal more damage over time. Although we do lose the consistent Vaporize trigger that Xingqiu provides, unless standing real close to your enemies with Barbara's skill up, it might not be all bad, given that it's looking like electro-based reactions will be getting a buff in the future, so all might not be lost here. Though Genshin does lend itself to being a game that cares more about DPS than sustainability, if you don't fully believe in your mechanical skills, or your characters are just too undergeared to stay alive, it may benefit you to bring along a dedicated healer if tackling the Abyss, since in Overworld you can rely on food to play that role. Hopefully you guys have found this team guide useful and it will help you in deciding which heroes to move forward and build. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and hit the notification bell, that way you never miss a video. And don't forget to join our Discord, link will be down in the description below. But guys, that's all I have for today. Hopefully you did enjoy. See you guys in the next video. Peace.